Someone asked me, "Why haven't I met the right person yet?" I said, "Maybe the person is not missing, maybe the Duyen is not ready yet." We often think meeting the right person is only about finding them. So we look, we wait, we wonder where they are. But Duyen is not only about two people meeting. Duyen also depends on time, the situation, and the mind of each person. Sometimes two people meet too early. One is ready to love. The other is still trying to heal. One wants to build something. The other is still afraid of staying. They may both be good people, but the Duyen is still too thin. Then sometimes two people meet very easily. They remember each other's birthday. They ask if the other person has eaten. They send a good night message, only 2 words. But we look at the phone and smile. The Duyen begins to grow. Then one evening, they do not reply. 10 minutes pass, then 20. Now the mind becomes very creative. Are they angry? Did I do something wrong? Are they losing interest? Maybe they are only taking a shower, but in our mind, the whole Duyen is already in danger. That is how the mind works. We begin with affection. Then fear quietly walks in and sits beside it. The Duyen may be good, but fear begins pulling at it. We want to know too quickly. Will you stay? Will you always love me? Will you never change? That is a difficult promise. Because people change, we change too. Meeting someone is like being given a seed. That seed is Duyen, but a seed is not yet a tree. You cannot plant it in the morning, then sit beside it in the afternoon and ask, "Why is there no fruit?" But we often do exactly that. We have known someone for a short time, and already the mind wants certainty. We check the phone. We ask one more question. We need one more reassurance. We say we are only concerned, but after a while, the other person feels less loved and more closely supervised. We do not mean to make them tired. We are simply afraid, and if we do not understand that fear, we may call it love. Then we expect the other person to keep calming us down. Even a kind person can become tired. So perhaps the question is not only, when will the right person appear? Perhaps we should also ask, when that Duyen appears, will I know how to care for it? Because the right person may come. But if the mind is not ready, we may hold too tightly. We may ask them to heal wounds they did not create. We may demand promises that no human being can safely make. We may pull the seed out of the soil every day, just to see whether it has roots. Some Duyen needs time, some Duyen needs patience, and some Duyen needs both people to become ready before it can grow. So do not rush. Do not decide too quickly that life has forgotten you. Maybe the Duyen is already forming, quietly, slowly, and when the conditions are ready, the person you need may appear in a way you never expected. Sometimes a person enters our life so easily that we almost do not notice how unusual it is. No big plan, no dramatic introduction. You simply happen to be in the same place. You say a few ordinary words then. Somehow the conversation does not feel ordinary. Maybe you meet at work, maybe through a friend, maybe while waiting for coffee. Maybe one person asks, "Is this seat taken?" That is all one small question. But later, when you look back, you realize that the whole Duyen began there. People often say it was just a coincidence. Maybe. But in Buddhism, we also understand that a meeting needs many conditions. You had to arrive at that place. They had to arrive too, not 5 minutes earlier, not 1 hour later. Something in your life brought you there. Something in their life brought them there. Then the paths crossed. That is the visible part. But many conditions may have been gathering before the meeting. Perhaps you had recently become tired of living in the same way. Perhaps they had just learned how to speak more honestly. Perhaps one person had finally stopped running. Perhaps the other had finally stopped chasing. Then they met. It looked sudden. But perhaps it was not sudden at all. The moment was sudden. The preparation was not. This is why some people seem to arrive at exactly the right time. Maybe before that, many people had tried to advise us. A parent said, "You need to slow down." We did not listen. A friend said, "You are giving too much to people who give nothing back." We became annoyed. Then one day someone we barely know says almost the same thing, and suddenly we sit quietly. We think that is exactly what I needed to hear. The words were not new. But the mind had changed. The condition had changed. Now the words could enter. It is like rain falling on hard ground. The rain is there, but the soil does not receive it then after many seasons. The soil becomes softer, the same rain falls. This time it enters. We may praise the final rain, but the earlier rain also mattered. Life often prepares us this way. One disappointment makes us less arrogant. One mistake teaches us patience. One loss shows us what truly matters. Then someone appears, and because the heart has changed, we can recognize something we could not recognize before. Sometimes a good person appears after we stop trying to make every person become the right person. For a long time we search. Someone smiles at us. The mind says, could this be the one? Someone remembers our coffee order. The mind says, this must mean something. The poor person has only remembered coffee, but in our mind, the wedding has already been arranged. This is what loneliness can do. It gives a very large meaning to a very small gesture. Then every new person receives a job. They must make us feel safe. They must understand our past. They must heal what someone else broke. They must never become tired. They must never need space. That is a lot of work for someone who has only said hello. Then one day we stop. Not because we no longer care about love. We simply become tired of turning every meeting into an interview. We begin living again. We take care of our health. We speak with family. We do our work. We learn to eat dinner without staring at the phone. We learn to sit alone without immediately calling it abandonment. Then someone appears, because we are not trying to make them fill every empty place. We can finally see who they are. The Duyen feels lighter. They can be themselves. We can be ourselves. No one has to carry the entire future during the first conversation. This is often when connection becomes natural. Not because the new person is perfect, but because the mind is less hungry. A hungry mind does not really meet a person. It meets what it hopes the person will become. That is different. When the mind becomes calmer, we begin to notice smaller things. Does this person speak kindly to people who cannot help them? Do they keep their word? Can they apologize? Do they listen only when the story is interesting? Or also when we are tired and speaking slowly? These details are not exciting, but they tell us more than beautiful promises. At the beginning, almost everyone can be thoughtful. They remember birthdays. They ask if we have eaten. They stay awake talking until 2 in the morning. Then ordinary life returns. Work becomes busy. The weather is hot. Someone has not slept well. Now the real character begins to appear. This is not a bad thing. It is simply time showing us what kind of Duyen has arrived. Some people come easily and stay for years. Some arrive easily and leave quickly. The easy beginning does not tell us the whole story. It only tells us that the condition for meeting was present. The condition for continuing must still be created. Trust is created. Honesty is created. Patience is created. Even forgiveness is created. These do not appear fully formed on the first day. Two people may feel very close. Then the first misunderstanding happens. One becomes quiet. The other becomes nervous. One needs space. The other interprets space as rejection. Now the Duyen is no longer carried only by attraction. It needs awareness. One person may say, when you become quiet, I become afraid. The other may say, when you ask the same question many times, I feel pressured that conversation may be uncomfortable. But now they are seeing each other. Before they were only enjoying each other. Enjoyment brings people close. Understanding helps them remain close. This is why a good Duyen still needs effort. Not force, not chasing, just care. Sometimes people say, if this is really the right person, everything should be easy. That sounds nice. But real life does not always follow nice sentences. Two good people can still carry old fears. Two sincere people can still misunderstand each other. A good Duyen does not mean there will be no difficulty. It means difficulty can become a place of learning, instead of a place where both people try to win. When someone arrives easily, we should appreciate the meeting, but we do not need to name the whole future immediately. Maybe this person becomes a friend, maybe a partner, maybe someone who helps us through one difficult season, maybe someone who teaches us an important lesson, then continues on another road. The meeting can still be meaningful. Not every meaningful person must remain forever. A bridge is useful even though we do not build a house on it. We cross. We continue, and we remember that the bridge helped us when we needed it. Some people are like that. They come at the right time, they help us cross something. Then the conditions change. If we demand that every beautiful Duyen become permanent, we may turn gratitude into fear. Someone brings us peace. Immediately we want to keep them. Someone makes us feel understood. Immediately we ask them not to change. But holding too tightly does not make a Duyen stronger. Sometimes it makes the other person unable to breathe. So when someone arrives easily, do not rush to possess the meeting. Receive it, observe it, care for it. Let time show you what kind of Duyen has appeared. You do not need to know everything today. Today perhaps it is enough to say, this person has entered my life. Let me treat this meeting well. That is already a good beginning. Many people say, I am waiting for the right person. But sometimes, if we look carefully, we are only waiting. We are not creating any condition for the meeting to happen. We stay in the same room. Follow the same routine. Avoid every new conversation. Turn down every invitation. Then we wonder, why has no one appeared? It is like standing beside an empty field and asking, why is nothing growing? Well, did we plant anything? Duyen does not mean forcing life. It does not mean chasing every person we meet. It does not mean smiling at someone once, then deciding that the universe has sent a sign. But Duyen still needs conditions. If we want friendship, we must be willing to speak. If we want understanding, we must learn to listen. If we want someone trustworthy, we should also become someone who can be trusted. We cannot keep the heart completely closed, then complain that no one can enter. There was a woman named Anna. She lived alone and often said, I wish I had one close friend, just one person I could call. She went to work. She came home, she ate dinner in front of the television, then she went to bed. The next day looked almost the same. Her co-workers sometimes invited her for coffee. She always said, maybe next time. A neighbor invited her to a small birthday gathering. Anna asked, who will be there? The neighbor named a few people. Anna said, I do not know any of them. The neighbor laughed. That is why you come. Then you will know them. But Anna stayed home. Another weekend, an old colleague sent a message. A few of us are having lunch. Join us. Anna looked at the message. She felt tired. She told herself she would answer later. Then she forgot. A few days passed. On Monday she saw photographs from the lunch. Everyone was smiling. Anna felt hurt. She thought, they did not really want me there, but they had invited her. The Duyen had knocked softly. She simply did not open the door. This happened for months. Then one evening, Anna called her sister and said, nobody cares whether I am there or not. Her sister was quiet. Then she said, people have asked you to come, but you keep saying no. After a while they believe you. Anna did not like hearing that. Sometimes we do not like the truth when it arrives without decoration. But, she began thinking, the next time a co-worker asked her to have coffee. Anna almost said no. She was tired. Her hair did not look good. She had nothing interesting to say. The mind found many reasons. Then she remembered the empty field. She said, all right, only one cup. That cup lasted nearly 2 hours. They talked about work at first, then family, then how difficult it can be to start over after disappointment. Nothing dramatic happened. No music began playing, but a small Duyen opened. One coffee became another. Months later, when Anna's mother became ill, that co-worker was the first person who brought food to her apartment. Anna had spent years waiting for someone who cared, but care had first appeared as a very ordinary invitation. This is how many good connections begin quietly. They do not always look important at the beginning. We miss them because we are waiting for something more impressive. We imagine the right person will understand us immediately. The conversation will be perfect. We will feel certain. But good Duyen often begins with a little awkwardness. A short conversation. A name we forget and have to ask again. A meeting we almost refuse. A person we do not notice at first. If we only accept a connection when it feels extraordinary, we may miss the ordinary door through which it enters. Sometimes we are not closed because we dislike people. We are closed because we have been hurt. Maybe we trusted someone, they disappointed us. Maybe we gave too much, the other person left anyway. So now the mind says, be careful. That is understandable. But careful and closed are not the same. Being careful means we look clearly. Being closed means we decide the answer before anything begins. Someone speaks kindly. We think they probably want something. Someone remembers a small detail. We think they are pretending. Someone tries to come closer. We step back before they arrive. Then later we say, there are no sincere people anymore. Perhaps sincerity came near us and met a locked door. Fear often says, I am protecting you, and sometimes it is. But fear can protect us so completely that even kindness cannot reach us. This is why waiting must include preparation. A farmer waits for the season, but the farmer does not sit in the house all year. The soil is cleared, seeds are chosen, water is prepared. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. Waiting can include healing. Learning to speak honestly, learning not to disappear when we feel uncomfortable, learning to say, I am afraid, instead of punishing someone with silence. These are conditions. We may not know who will appear. We may not know when, but we can prepare the kind of heart they will meet. This matters because many people want a healthy relationship, but do not want to examine the habits they would bring into it. We want someone patient, but when we are upset, we become sharp. We want someone who listens, but when they speak, we are already preparing our defense. We want someone who trusts us, but we question every delay. Then we say, I only need the right person. Even the right person cannot do all the work alone. A healthy Duyen is not created by one perfect person. It is created by two imperfect people who are willing to see what they are doing. One may need to speak more gently. The other may need to stop running away. One may need reassurance. The other may need room. If both people can see this, the Duyen has somewhere to grow. Good conditions are also created in small, everyday actions. Remembering someone's name, asking how their father is doing, sending a message after they had a difficult week, listening without looking at the phone. These actions do not guarantee that a special person will appear next Tuesday. Life does not work like a delivery service. We do not perform kindness today, then check the door tomorrow. We create good conditions because they make the heart more open now. The result may become friendship, love, support, or simply a better way of living. Sometimes the person we think we need does not appear. Instead, life sends someone who prepares us. A teacher, a friend, even a difficult co-worker. That person may show us how impatient we still are, how much we need to control, how quickly we judge. It may not be the Duyen we asked for, but it may be the Duyen that makes another meeting possible later. So do not only ask, who will come? Also ask, what am I planting? Suspicion? Then every person will look dangerous. Desperation? Then every kind gesture will look like a promise. Patience? Then a connection can unfold naturally. Sincerity? Then another person may feel safe enough to be sincere too. We cannot control who enters our life, but we can prepare the ground. Opening the door is Duyen. Speaking kindly is Duyen. Going for 1 cup of coffee, even when the mind gives 10 reasons to stay home. That can also be Duyen. So do not only wait, plant something, not to force love, not to demand a result. Plant because an open heart is already a better place to live. Then, when the conditions gather, the Duyen will not arrive on empty ground. Not every person who enters our life comes for the same reason. Some remain for many years. Some stay for 1 season. Some help us. Some challenge us. And some appear only long enough to show us something we could not see alone. When someone arrives, we usually want to know, will this person stay? But perhaps we should first ask, what kind of Duyen is this? There are people who come during a difficult time. Maybe we are grieving. Maybe we have lost confidence. Maybe life has become very heavy. Then someone appears. They do not fix everything. They do not remove the pain. They simply sit beside us. Sometimes that is enough. A man named David lost his job after working for the same company for 18 years. He did not tell many people. Every morning he still got dressed as if he were going to work. He left the house at the usual time. Then he sat in a small park with a cup of coffee. He did not want his neighbors to know. He did not want his children to worry. Mostly he did not want to say the words aloud, "I lost my job." For several mornings, an older man sat on the same bench nearby. They greeted each other. Nothing more. Then one day the older man asked, "You are not going to work?" David smiled. "I am taking some time off." The old man looked at him for a moment. Then he said, "I used to come here when my wife died. I also told people I was taking time off." David laughed, not because it was funny, because the man had seen through him without making him feel ashamed. They began talking. The old man did not give David a long speech. He did not say, "Everything happens for a reason." Sometimes that sentence makes people feel worse. He simply said, "Losing a job is painful, but it is not the same as losing your value." David remembered that sentence. They met in the park for several weeks. Then the old man stopped coming. David later learned that he had moved to live with his daughter. They never became lifelong friends. They did not exchange messages every day, but at the exact time David felt most ashamed. One person sat beside him without judgment. That was the Duyen, short, quiet, but meaningful. We often believe that if a connection ends, it failed. Not always. A bridge does not fail because we do not remain on it. Its purpose is to help us cross. Some people do that. They help us cross one difficult place. Then life carries them somewhere else. The Duyen was still real. It simply had a different shape than we expected. There are also people who make us uncomfortable. They challenge us. They touch our impatience, our jealousy, our fear of being abandoned. At first we may say, "This person is creating all my pain." Sometimes a person really is harmful. We should not use the word Duyen to excuse cruelty. Duyen does not mean we must remain where we are repeatedly hurt, but sometimes the person is not creating the wound. They are touching a wound that was already there. Someone takes a long time to reply. We feel abandoned. Someone disagrees with us. We feel disrespected. Someone asks for space. We immediately believe they are leaving. The reaction is very large. The situation may be small. Now the relationship becomes a mirror. We do not like mirrors when they show us something uncomfortable. We prefer the mirror to apologize, but the mirror is only showing what is present. A difficult Duyen may reveal that we still need constant reassurance, that we confuse attention with love, that we become cold whenever we feel vulnerable. We do not have to keep every difficult person, but we should not waste the lesson. Sometimes life also sends us people because we are meant to help them. We often ask, "Who will come and support me?" But perhaps one day we are the person being sent. A friend calls late at night. A coworker quietly tells us they are struggling. A young person asks a question we once had ourselves. We may wonder, why did they choose me? Maybe because our own pain prepared us to understand theirs. Something that once hurt us may later become compassion. A mistake we were ashamed of may help us listen without judgment. This is one way suffering can become useful, not because suffering is good, but because the heart can learn from it. Then what wounded us does not have to be wasted. Still, helping someone requires wisdom. Sometimes we meet a person who is suffering, and immediately we want to rescue them. We give all our time. We answer every call. We forget our own limits. We think if I love them enough, they will change. Then slowly compassion becomes exhaustion. We begin doing what the other person must learn to do themselves. That does not help either person. A good heart still needs boundaries. We can support someone, we can listen, but we cannot live their life for them. Sometimes the most compassionate sentence is, "I care about you, but I cannot continue doing this for you." That sentence may feel unkind, but endless rescuing can also keep a person weak. Not every form of help is helpful. There are also people who arrive when we are lonely. Because of loneliness, we may give the Duyen a meaning it does not yet have. They remember one detail. We think they understand me completely. They send a kind message. We imagine a future. The person has only opened the door, but the mind has already moved all the furniture inside. This is why time matters. Time shows consistency. Time shows whether kindness remains when life becomes inconvenient. Time shows how someone behaves when disappointed. The beginning shows us how a person hopes to be seen. Ordinary life shows us who they are. So when someone arrives, we do not need to decide immediately what role they will have. Let the Duyen unfold. Notice how both people behave when tired, when plans change, when one person says no, when expectations are not met. A connection is not known only through beautiful days. It is also known through small disappointments. Can we speak honestly? Can we apologize? Can we listen without turning every conversation into a trial? Sometimes people say, "I am sorry, but you made me do it." That is not really an apology. That is an accusation wearing polite clothes. A good Duyen grows when both people can put down pride, at least for a moment. Life may send us a partner, a friend, a teacher, a child, a difficult relative, even a stranger in a park. Each person may awaken something different. One teaches patience. One teaches boundaries, one teaches trust, one shows us how much healing remains, and one may teach us how to let go without hatred. So do not judge every Duyen only by how long it lasts. A short Duyen can give a long lesson, a painful Duyen can make the heart wiser, and sometimes a very quiet Duyen becomes the safest place in our life. We do not always know which kind has arrived. We only need to meet it with awareness. Some people will walk beside us, some will point toward the road, some will show us where we are still wounded, and some will sit beside us on a park bench. Say one honest sentence, then disappear from our life, but the sentence remains. Sometimes two people care for each other deeply, but the relationship still changes. This is difficult to accept, we think. If the feeling was real, why did it not stay the same? But feelings do not live alone. They depend on conditions, time, health, distance, responsibilities, the condition of the mind. When the conditions change, the Duyen may change too. Two women, Maria and Helen, had been close friends since university. For many years they spoke almost every day. They knew the small details of each other's lives, a problem at work, a family argument, what they were cooking for dinner. Even the things that were not important felt important because they were shared. Then Maria had a child. Her days changed quickly. She slept very little. Sometimes she began a message and forgot to finish it. Helen would call. Maria would say, "I will call you back after I put the baby to sleep." Then she fell asleep too. At first Helen understood. Then weeks became months. The messages became shorter. One evening, Helen saw a photograph of Maria having dinner with another mother and felt hurt. She thought, "She has time for other people. She just does not have time for me." Maria, meanwhile, felt guilty. Every time she saw Helen's name on the phone, she thought, "I have not replied properly. Must be angry." Because she felt guilty, she delayed replying again. Now both people were waiting. Helen waited for Maria to prove that the friendship still mattered. Maria waited until she had enough time to explain everything. Neither one said what was actually happening. Finally, Helen sent a message. "I feel like I have lost my friend." Maria called immediately. She began crying. She said, "I thought I was the one failing you." Nothing terrible had happened. No betrayal, no lack of love. The conditions had changed. The friendship could no longer look exactly as it had before. They could not speak every day. Maria could not give the same attention. Helen had to stop measuring care by the number of messages. They created a new condition. One phone call every Sunday evening. Sometimes it was only 15 minutes. Sometimes the baby cried through the whole call. Helen joked, "I know more about this child's sleeping schedule than my own." The friendship did not return to its old form. It became a new form. That is often what relationships need, not a return to the past, a new way to remain present now. We suffer when we keep trying to place an old Duyen inside new conditions. Parents do this with children. When the child is young, the parent decides everything: what they eat, where they go, when they sleep. Then the child grows older. They want privacy. They make their own choices. The parent may feel you have changed. Of course, the child has changed. That is what growing means. But sometimes the parent continues using the old kind of care. Too many questions. Advice that was not requested. Calling 3 times because the first call was not answered. The parent says, "I am worried." The child feels, "I am being watched." Both may love each other, but love is being expressed through a form that no longer fits. A good Duyen must know how to change shape. Sometimes love means holding. Sometimes it means giving space. Sometimes it means asking. Sometimes it means waiting until the other person is ready to speak. The same action is not wise in every condition. This is why awareness is more important than habit. We need to see what is happening now. Not only remember what worked before. Relationships also change when one person begins to grow. Maybe for many years someone always said yes. They avoided conflict. They apologized even when they were not wrong. They gave too much because they were afraid people would leave. Then one day they begin setting boundaries. They say, I cannot do that today, or I do not want to be spoken to that way. People around them may say, you have changed. Yes, something has changed. The old relationship was partly supported by silence. Now honesty has entered. Some relationships can adjust. Some cannot. If a connection only works when one person never says no, then the new boundary did not destroy the relationship. It revealed the condition that had been supporting it. This can be painful. Sometimes we lose people when we become healthier, not because health is wrong, but because some people were comfortable with the version of us who never refused, never complained, never asked for respect when that version disappears. The Duyen is tested. A strong connection may become more honest. A weak one may fade. Sometimes we are the person who struggles when someone else changes. A partner becomes more independent. A friend finds new interests. A family member no longer needs our help. We feel less important. Then we say, you are not the same anymore. What we may really mean is, I no longer know my place in your life. That fear is natural, but we should look at it. Do we want the person to grow or only to remain familiar? Real care allows another person to change, even when the change makes us uncomfortable. This does not mean accepting neglect. It does not mean staying silent when someone behaves badly. Some changes are harmful. Some are simply life-moving. We need enough calmness to know the difference. There are also relationships in which the conditions have become deeply unhealthy. Trust has been broken again and again. Words have become cruel. One person keeps promising to change, but the promise has become another way to delay responsibility. In such cases, leaving may be necessary. People sometimes say, if we have Duyen, we must stay together. Not always. Duyen explains how people meet. It does not command us to remain in suffering forever. Some Duyen is completed by staying. Some is completed by leaving clearly. We may care and still need distance. We may forgive and still not return. We may understand why someone behaves badly without continuing to stand where they can hurt us. Compassion does not mean removing every boundary. Sometimes a closed door is not hatred, it is wisdom. Still, when conditions change, the mind resists. We replay the past. We remember when the friendship was close, when the partner was attentive, when the family still felt whole. We ask, why can it not be like before? Because before has passed. That does not mean it was false. A person may have loved us sincerely at one time. Even if the relationship later changed, we do not have to turn every ending into a lie. Sometimes what was true then is simply no longer true now. This is painful, but it is cleaner than bitterness. When conditions change, we can force, we can blame, or we can look clearly. What is still alive here? What has already ended? What new form is possible? Sometimes the Duyen can be renewed. Two people speak honestly. They apologize. They stop demanding that today look exactly like yesterday. Sometimes the connection becomes quieter, less close but still kind, and sometimes the most honest response is to release it. Not every change needs to become a war. A person can leave our daily life. Without becoming our enemy, we can say, this Duyen brought something meaningful. Now the conditions are different. The sadness may remain, but it does not have to become hatred. Everything depends on conditions. Meeting depends on conditions. Closeness depends on conditions. Even separation depends on conditions. When we understand this, we care fully while the Duyen is present. And when it changes, we try not to destroy what was once beautiful simply because it could not remain the same. We often think the most important condition is outside us, the right person, the right time, the right place. So we keep looking outward. We ask, when will they come? When will life change? When will everything become easier? But sometimes the greatest condition is the state of our own mind. The same event can enter two minds and create two completely different stories. A woman named Rachel had been seeing someone for several months. One afternoon he sent a message. "I am busy today. I will call you later." That was all. Rachel read it once, then again. The message was simple, but the mind did not remain simple, she thought. Why did he not say what he is busy doing then? His messages have been shorter lately. Then maybe he is losing interest. She looked at the last few conversations. She examined the time between messages. The mind had now opened an investigation. By evening she had created a complete story. He was becoming distant. He had met someone else. He was preparing to leave. At 8 o'clock he called. Rachel answered coldly. He asked, "Is something wrong?" She said, "No, everything is fine." This is one of the most dangerous sentences in a relationship, because usually everything is not fine. He tried to speak. Rachel gave short answers. He became confused, then quiet. She thought, "See, he does not even want to talk the next day." He sent fewer messages because the conversation had felt uncomfortable. Rachel looked at the silence and thought, "I knew it." The mind had created the condition it feared later. When they finally spoke honestly, he explained that his father had been taken to a medical appointment. He had been driving, waiting and helping all day. Rachel felt embarrassed. Nothing in the original message had said he was leaving. Fear had added that part. This is how the mind works. It does not only receive the present, it brings the past with it. One delayed reply may touch an old abandonment. One disagreement may touch an old feeling of not being respected. One quiet evening may remind us of a former relationship that ended slowly. Now the new person is not speaking only with us. They are speaking with every disappointment standing behind us. At first they may understand, but if they must repeatedly prove that they are not someone from our past, the Duyen becomes tired. This does not mean every concern is imaginary. People can be dishonest. They can become careless. We should not use spiritual language to ignore clear behavior. But we need to know what belongs to the present and what the mind has carried in from before. That requires a pause. Rachel could have said, "I notice that I am feeling unsettled. Is everything okay?" That sentence opens a conversation. Instead, the mind chose silence and coldness. The feeling was real, but the story around it was not yet proven. This is why seeing the mind is so important. Fear says, "Act now." Awareness says, "Wait, look again." Fear says, "Ask for another promise." Awareness asks, "Has this person actually done something wrong?" Fear says, "Leave before they leave you." Awareness says, "Do not make a permanent decision from a temporary feeling." Sometimes one quiet breath protects an entire Duyen. Without that breath, we send the message. We say the sharp sentence. We close the door. Later, when the mind becomes calm, we regret it. But words do not return simply because we have calmed down. They have already entered the other person's heart. So caring for the mind is also caring for the relationship. We may ask ourselves, what is happening inside me? Is this care or control? Is this love or fear wearing love's clothes? Care says, "I want to understand." Control says, "I need you to behave in a way that keeps me calm." Love appreciates another person's presence. Attachment demands that the person remove every uncomfortable feeling. The difference is not always easy to see. Sometimes we call 10 times and say, "I was worried." Maybe we were. But perhaps there was also fear, and perhaps fear wanted control. We do not need to judge ourselves harshly. We only need to be honest. When something is seen clearly, it can begin to change. If we notice that we are demanding too much, we can step back. If we notice that we always disappear when hurt, we can speak. If old pain is controlling a new moment, we can remind ourselves, this is not the same person, this is not the same situation. That small recognition creates a new condition. The mind becomes softer. The relationship has more space. The mind also affects which people we continue choosing. Some people say, "I always meet the same kind of person." Unavailable. Inconsistent. Warm one day, gone the next. Again and again the story looks familiar. Perhaps life is sending the same lesson, or perhaps something in us is still attracted to what feels familiar, not what is healthy. Familiar pain can feel strangely comfortable. We know how to chase it, how to wait, how to hope, how to forgive too quickly. A peaceful person may feel unfamiliar. They reply when they say they will. They speak clearly. They do not create confusion. There is no need to guess. But if the mind has learned to connect love with anxiety, peace may feel boring. Then we leave a calm Duyen and return to one that keeps us awake at night. This is why the mind needs clarity. Otherwise, we may pray for the right person, then fail to recognize them when they appear. The right person may not create the strongest excitement. They may bring steadiness. But if we are used to emotional storms, quiet water may not feel like love. Sometimes the person we need cannot come close, because we are still asking someone to complete us. We want them to remove loneliness, give us confidence, make us feel valuable, prove that we are lovable every day. That is too much weight for one human being. Even a very kind person cannot carry it forever. But when we begin caring for the mind, the conditions change. We learn to sit alone without calling it rejection. We learn to calm one fear before asking another person to calm it. We build a life that is not completely empty while we wait. Then when someone comes, we meet them as a companion, not as a rescue. That creates a different Duyen we can appreciate without clinging so tightly. We can allow them to be tired, to make a mistake, to need quiet. We do not interpret every ordinary human moment as a sign that love is disappearing. The greatest condition is not becoming perfect. No one becomes perfect. It is becoming aware. Aware of what we bring, aware of what we repeat, aware of what fear is asking us to do. Then the mind stops making every small moment carry the whole future. A message is a message. A disagreement is a disagreement. A quiet evening is not always the beginning of loss. When the mind becomes steady, we see people more clearly. We stop turning imagination into evidence. We stop pulling the seed from the soil. We give the Duyen time to show its roots. So while waiting for the person we need, we should also prepare the mind they will meet. A mind that can listen. A mind that can speak honestly. A mind that knows when to come closer and when to give space. Because when the outer conditions are ready, and the inner condition is ready too, the Duyen has a much better chance to grow. So perhaps the person you need is not late. Perhaps life is still gathering the conditions, their conditions, your conditions, the conditions for two paths to cross, and for both people to recognize what has appeared. We often become impatient. We look around and think, everyone else has someone. Why not me? But we only see the meeting. We do not see the years that prepared it, the disappointment that softened one heart, the mistake that humbled another, the loneliness that taught someone how to listen. Duyen often begins before we can see it, quietly, like roots under the soil. Nothing appears to be happening. But the ground is changing. This does not mean we sit and do nothing. We still plant. We still care for the mind. We learn to speak more gently, to listen without rushing, to let old pain become understanding, instead of bringing it into every new meeting. Then one day, someone may appear. Perhaps not dramatically, maybe through work, through a friend, during one ordinary conversation. A small invitation, one cup of coffee, a message sent at the right time, and slowly the Duyen begins. When that happens, do not ask the seed to promise the whole future. Let the person be known. Let trust take time. Let the relationship show its real shape. Some people will stay. Some will help us through one season. Some will teach us something, then continue on another road. Our task is not to control every ending. Our task is to meet each beginning with awareness, to care without squeezing, to love without turning fear into control. And if no one has appeared yet, do not decide that life has forgotten you. Keep preparing the ground. Keep living. Keep becoming someone who can recognize a good Duyen and care for it when it comes. Sometimes the person is ready, but we are not. Sometimes we are ready, but their path has not reached ours yet, and sometimes both lives simply need more time. So be patient, not passive. Patient. Continue planting good conditions. Then, when the Duyen is ready, the person you need may appear. And when they do, perhaps you will not need to hold them too tightly. You will simply know how to meet them well.